what about best practices for security? If you're going to give people a piece of advice, what would you point them towards? Chris, what's your take on that?
Wow. Well, you have to be proactive and reactive. You got to have all the tools we've been talking about here, but you also have to look ahead, and you've got to try to figure out who might try to or want to get into your system, and you have to get to them and then before they get to you. Now, that's not going to be possible in all cases, but you need to look at all your employees. Frankly, this is a business. You're running a business. You've got to be objective about it. You may love your employees, but there may be somebody who's desperate and in trouble and needs to do something, make some extra money, and they can do it very quickly if the right person approaches them. I was at a CINET, which is a national security organization summit recently, and one of the first things that was set up on the stage is, hey, the easiest way for a bad actor or a nation state or a crime organization to get into your system is just to hire somebody from within and pay them lots of money.
Right, an inside job.
And we hear that 75, sometimes 75, maybe as much as 80% of all big data breaches happen from the inside. We have to stop that first. It's hard to do because the human element is a very hard thing to deal with.
Katrina, your sense of a best practice, what would you recommend to businesses?
Well, I think that was all some smart advice there, and I would build on that and say that thinking like your nemesis is always a good practice to try to get ahead of them. At this point, I think on IT Business Edge and on eSecurity Planet and eWeek, we probably all said at some point that you're never going to get ahead of the bad guys, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't start trying. So on things like spear phishing or just phishing attempts, people trying to get in through your employees, as Chris was saying, there are services out there that are quite sophisticated that will help train your employees to become a harder target and maybe encourage the hackers to move on if they are finding that it's just not easy to get into your company because these people are really have a front of mind attitude as far as being suspicious about emails or other communication attempts that are coming in. And a couple good pieces of advice I got from a CEO of a company that provides that type of service recently were that your training or any sort of education attempts like that should be much more than once a year. You're just going to kill them with a death by PowerPoint approach. That way no one's going to remember anything.
Make it ongoing.
Make it ongoing.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh. And number two, make sure that the IT staff gets the same training. Not only so they learn anything that they didn't already know, and also so that they know what their users know.
Mm-hmm. Sean, best practices? What would you tell companies if you were hired to be an IT security guy?
I got some props. First of all, everybody listening in on this Google Hangout, if you're not using this on your phone or on one of your devices, that's Google Authenticator.
Yeah.
Stop this thing right now and get two-factor authentication right now.
It's a free download?
Free download, two-factor authentication, because anybody can phish a single email. That's ridiculously easy. My 10-year-old can do it. You need two-factor authentication, because with two-factor, it takes that second step, and that means you have your own password, which you know, and then something you have. In my case, it's a phone. Could have been an SMS. You add two-factor to any equation, and you're doing much better. There's two-factor, you can do it on a phone. RSA has tokens. This is one of my little tokens that you can get. Dual Security has, there's a whole bunch of different ones. But the bottom line is it should be something you know, something you have. I can't tell you how many stories I've written for you, for eSecurity Planet, for eWeek, where the first thing the company says, oh, we're going to put in two-factor authentication now. Well, great. Why didn't you do it before? Right. In the big iCloud hack with all the celebrities at the beginning of this year, which I had a lot of fun writing about across all our publications, Apple, $160 billion in the bank, and they did not have two-factor authentication enabled in iCloud. How stupid can you be?
Yeah, so, I think in that particular case they were concerned about the consumer market and not stymieing the consumer market with too much, in their view, complication.
But you know what? You have to have two factors. Okay, if you live in New York City, you're not going to have one lock on your door, would you?
Right.
You just wouldn't. It's the same thing. So have that. So number one, do that. Number two, and we've written about this at great length across all the various publications, but I encourage everyone to do a quick look. Library of Sparta, go cite eSecurity Planets, eWeek, or Datamation. Basically, it's this military theory that there's a kill chain. So there's multiple steps a hacker has to do. If a hacker simply gets your email, and with your email and your password is able to get into all your systems, you are a loser. You deserve to be hacked because that shouldn't happen. You should have, number one, two-factor. Two, all your data should be encrypted. So even if they get your data, they can't do anything with it. Three, if you're an enterprise, have log access management, data loss prevention, and a reverse firewall proxy, something that manages stuff going in and out, so that if Social Security numbers, credit card numbers, etc., are going out, you can stop that. Just because a hacker gets into an organization doesn't mean that they have to get out. That's the bottom line. A hacker has to do multiple steps. All you have to do is stop them at one step. They have to do many steps. It's much harder to be an attacker than to be a defender. So the onus, of course, you should never victimize. We should never say the victim is at fault. But there are a lot of steps everybody can take to secure data at every step. Encryption, two-factor, log identification, DLP, firewall proxy. All these things can be in place, and then that limits the risk. Things can still happen, but at the very least, you're going to limit the risk of what that exploit can do to you.
Right, because I think in many cases hackers are like bullies in that they're looking for a softer target, and they come across a really, a hard perimeter. They're going to bounce around to the next target. Like it's just too much work to hack your perimeter.
Well, exactly. I know we talked a little bit about Snowden. The Snowden thing was kind of ridiculous. Here we have a super secret spy agency and a contractor. You have to remember, Snowden was not an NSA employee. He worked for Booz Allen Hamilton. And he had access to an entire network worth of secrets. How come
ridiculous.
That wasn't segmented?
That was ridiculous.
It is now. As I said earlier, network segmentation across the board. Some level DLP, you could stop that. So if you have that malicious insider, if you have a segmented network, number one, you would have stopped them. If all the data would have been encrypted, you would have stopped them. And then if you would have had DLP, you would have stopped them. So you have not one, not two, but three chances to defend your network.
Mm-hmm. The other thing about it, I think, in terms of like best practices, there's obviously specific technical ones like sandboxing a file, but there's something that, again, Chris, you had written this. There's a quote from Harry Koppinen from SSH. He said, "If you're not thinking about this part of the business, meaning security, eventually you will destroy your business." In other words, this has got to stay top of mind. It's not enough to hire a security pro or even put in a great firewall. It's got to remain top of mind.
Now, a concern for security has to permeate the organization. Everybody has to be aware, and this includes the C-level, the C-suite people, and the board of directors, because without security, their business is going to be out of business soon enough.
Right.
And I think Hari actually said, he said, your business, you could be destroying your business. Destroying it is the word he used. Mm-hmm. If you do not put enough investment and time and effort into security. And I think he's right.